So guys, today we're going to have a look at how to make a film poster. You can see here one that I'm basically going to recreate for us today, based off of some work that one of my students was doing. What I want us to do basically is to go from not knowing Photoshop to being able to create this kind of project. This is obviously based on similar kinds of film posters for rom-coms, so it's a bit cheesy, but it will work nicely for what we're trying to do today. Let's just start off by opening up a new Photoshop page. So I'm going to go File, New. Whenever you're starting a project on Photoshop, you want to start off by working out the end point that you want to come to, really. What's the output that you're trying to get to? In this case, I'm making a film poster. I'm just going to go for an A4 film poster. I could size it up, but at a 300 resolution international paper of A4, it's highly unlikely that I'm going to need more than that for a media project. We can come and name it up here if we want. So we can give this a name of film poster. And remember, in here you can select lots of different presets. I've got some for Instagram there, but if you go in international paper, you can select the different ones. I could select A3, but I'm going to just stick with A4 today. You can change the resolution there if you need to. You can also change the colour of the background there. I'm going to leave it as white because that's beneficial for me, because that's the colour of the background that I want. But I could set this to a specific colour by going into background colour, or I could go into transparent. We'll use white though, and we'll hit OK. At this point, we're going to have a nice plain canvas for us to start putting things onto. But before we do that, I'm just going to run us through the key points of Photoshop, just to go over these. If you're already kind of aware of these, you can skip to later on in the video to kind of get a few other tips. But let's just quickly run through the main points. This here is your canvas. Depending on the version you're using, or if you're on Mac or PC, it might look slightly different, but they generally all have this key idea to them. You'll notice that I have my tabs up here for my different things that I'm working on. So there was the one that we were just looking at. Here's a building block one, and here's the new one that I just set up. So you can always find those up here. You can pull them off so that they're separate. Personally, I don't like doing that. I like having them all embedded here because it just makes life easier. Down here in the bottom right is a layers tab. The layers tab is highly useful, and where you're going to spend most you're going to spend an awful lot of time looking at the layers tab. So it's very important that you have a basic understanding of what's going on there. I'll explain that a little bit more once we start using layers in a second. Above that, you'll usually find your adjustments layers. Again, we don't need to worry too much about those now. I will do a video on how to use those as well, so that you can go through those. Colour swatches up here. This is really useful for just selecting different colours that you'll be using. And you can see your foreground and background colour there, and those also appear down the bottom here. And you can switch between them quickly here, and you can see in the top right how they're switching when I press that button. We can click on that and change it. I'm going to just set it to white for the time being because that's useful to me. Other than that, over here we've got all our tools. These are super useful, and these are how we're going to affect our canvas basically. These are going to be what we use to sort of draw on things, add new things, move things around. Usually you're going to want to start off with your move tool, and then you can start using other tools when and if you need them. Always make sure you're using the right tool for what you're doing. One of the biggest mistakes I see students make is that they try and move things around without checking the tool that they are using. So always start off by having a look at the tools on the left hand side. Have a little look and you can pick the tool that is right for the job. Other than that, most of the main things in here are going to be circumstantial, so we'll come to those when we get there. Obviously we've got our nice basic starting point now, so let's start getting some assets into here so that we can work on them. There's a couple of ways we can do this. We can go to File, Place, and then we can start adding in files from our computer. We can use this and go through, find where the files are saved. I've got them all saved in this poster Photoshop file, so I can go straight in here and start selecting things. Like I can select my little robot man here and we can plonk him in. As you can see, as soon as he comes in, he's looking a little blurry at the moment. That's just because he hasn't been finalised, he's not been placed. So he's just a sort of quick render version of himself at the moment. But as soon as I hit this tick up here, he will go into a sort of more finalised form. Because I've used place, he will go in as a smart object. All that means is that it's constantly referencing the original image, and it's not made him smaller. You can see up here that at the moment he's 53% of his actual size, but this will constantly reference the real image, so we won't lose any quality, at least not yet. Let's just start off by pressing the tick. He can stay there for the time being. So we've got our character. Notice I'm on the move tool, so I can move him around. If I was on a different tool, I wouldn't be able to do that. Let's show you one other way of getting things in. Let's go to here, and we can see again, here's all our files, and we can grab the lab coat woman file and we can just drag it in. And you'll notice that she's come straight into the image. When you're on here, you can then start adjusting. Now, when you adjust any character, unless you deliberately want to change their shape, always hold down the Shift key, whether you're on Mac or on PC. Hold the Shift key and that keeps it locked in proportions. You can also come up here and click on the chain link. If you click on the chain link, that will stay locked in as long as you're going from the corners. I can't unlock that. If you do pull from one of the sides, it will change though, and you can see there it changed it. If you happen to do something wrong, remember that you can always go back a step. Those are up here. Step backwards is Alt, Control and Z. You can also undo, which is just Control and Z, but you only get one undo, whereas you can do multiple step forwards and step backwards. So usually what you want to do will be a Control Z if you make a mistake. This is probably about right size for my female character, so I'm going to leave her there for the time being. You'll have noticed straight away that the female character has gone in front of the male character. If you come over here to the layers, it should be fairly obvious why that's happened. The way that layers work is whatever's on the top is visible in front of whatever's underneath. So this is a priority order of these different files. So our background is right at the back, at the bottom, then you've got the robot man, then you've got the female character ahead of that. One of the, again, biggest things that I see students doing is not understanding why something isn't appearing, and it's usually because it's behind other layers, it's lower down in this order. So always check that before anything else. Now I'm actually going to put the man slightly in front, and now what you'll notice is that he's going to be missized for our female character. Even if I put him there, he's a lot smaller than her at the moment in terms of sort of not being proportioned well to the size of her character. So to fix that, I'm going to change the proportion of the character. There's a couple of ways that we can do that. We can go down here and we can go free transform on him. So we can go to edit, edit free transform and start changing his shape. The other way to do it is when you're on the move tool, you can also come up here and go show transform controls, and likewise that will allow us to change his shape. Remember again that we're going to want to make sure that that little button's clicked so that he stays in shape. Lovely jubbly. That'll probably work nicely for us now. Another thing that I will show you over here is this little eye icon, and you'll notice that if I tap the eye, the character appears and disappears. He's probably a little bit big at the moment, so I'm going to make him a tiny bit smaller. That'll do. And we'll just check. Yeah, that's probably about right. So that's a good way of kind of just getting characters in and starting to edit them a little bit. And we've got both our characters here. Obviously I would have preferred 2 full-size characters, but I couldn't quite find a full-size female in a lab coat, and this was easier for what my student was trying to achieve, so I just grabbed these photos to do that with. Okay, our next problem that you've probably noticed is the fact that this character has a background behind him, and he's kind of getting in the way of this character. There's a few things that we can do to try and remedy that. The main way is going to be to remove the background. There's a couple of ways we can do that. If you're really lucky and the background's really clean, you can use the magic wand tool to just click on the background, and you'll notice it selects everything of that colour without any breaks in it. So you'll notice that that's actually done a pretty good job of selecting the whole background. But if you can see here, there are some pretty serious issues in terms of cutting into my character. And in that sense, the quick selection tool is probably a better way of doing this. Often with the quick select tool, you'll want to select the character rather than the background. Because this is a nice clean background, that might not be the case. With the quick select tool, it's as easy as just dragging over the area that you want to select. So just clicking and dragging, which is what I'm doing now. Sometimes you'll get an issue like that where it jumps. I clicked on the background a little bit and it's jumped. You can then come up here and switch between the plus and the minus to remove sections you didn't mean to select. You can also just hold Alt. I'm going to hold Alt now, and you'll see that the symbol on the tool changes from a plus to a minus. So that's the Alt key being able to shift between the two, which is very useful. I do use that probably more than any other shortcut, actually, the Alt key, especially when selecting characters for removing backgrounds. And you'll notice there again I've had a little bit of a problem. When doing a background removal, I would say that it's the most important thing to get right. Don't rush it, because once you get it wrong, it's hard to correct it. Whereas if you get it right from the off, if you've spent a little bit more time on it, you don't have to kind of go back and make changes at a later date. You can stick with what you've got, and it will save you a lot of pain. Now that is not too bad. That is actually a pretty good pull, I think. Maybe need a little bit more on his arm. Yeah, that's looking pretty dandy. So the next part is refining this edge to make sure that we've got a really clean cut, and you can do that by coming up here, refine edge. Now what this does is it allows you to make sure that the edge that you're working on is nice and clean. You've got some options if you go to view mode on how you view this. So you can view it on black, and you'll see there quite clearly what's going on because it was originally on white. You can view it on white, good for stuff that's coming off of black. You can view it on layers to see how it's going to look in relation to anything else. If you've already put in lots of other parts, that's usually quite a good way of doing that. For this, I'm just going to do it on layers, because as long as it looks good on this final bit, I'm not too worried if I've made any other small errors. You can come down here then and work on things like smoothness and contrast and shift edge. Usually I just add a little bit of smooth and a little bit of contrast, and that's it. You can add feathering. All these really do. Smooth is about creating cleaner lines and having less jagged edges on your cut. Feather creates a blur between the edges of the pixels, which isn't great on a lot of cuts. It can make your picture look blurry around the edges, make it look fuzzy. Contrast just brings the colours in line on the edges so that they match up better. And shift edge can literally move an edge in or out a little bit. So generally speaking, if you've done a good pull, you won't need to do the shift edge. Before you finish, you're going to want to come down here and change your output selection to new layer with layer mask. You can just select it as a layer mask, but I always do new layer with layer mask, so I've just got the original saved as its own layer. And there's also a nice cheat, which is this tool here, the refine radius tool. What this does is it enables you to change to sort of select an edge for the computer to do some quick clever selection on. You can change the size of your brush up here. You can also use the open and close brackets button on your keyboard to do this. So you can make that a little bit bigger. You'll notice that I'm using my keyboard buttons there, and you can see the size of it changing. Now when you go over the edges then, you'll notice that I painted in a little bit of his hair. That was annoying. Don't know what my computer's doing there. There we go. Don't know why it didn't like me for a second. Once you've done that, you might want to do it over some other little bits. Generally speaking, you probably don't need to do too much on this one. But then you hit OK, and like magic, you will have a beautifully cut out character. Now I'm actually going to go back on that, because you can see here I've actually accidentally blurred out some of his arm. So I'm going to go back on that quickly. So I just did a step backwards then, as I showed you before. I'll just do his hair up here. Beautiful. New layer of layer mask. And we'll smooth and contrast that a little bit. And hopefully, lovely. Haven't accidentally got rid of some of your arm, have I? Let's just do a quick check. The big advantage of a layer mask over sort of deleting or copying something is that anything that's black you can see, anything that's white you can see, anything that's black you can't. So if you make a mistake, you can always paint it back in by using white. So you can see there I actually did remove some of his arm. So I'm going to take the white and just paint back in a little bit of his arm here. I don't need to be too accurate on this, but it would be nice if we had a clean arm. As I said, the better you can make your original pull, the better, but you can see there I've just added a little bit of the shine back on his arm through that. So we've got our character's pulled out here, and you can see he's now appearing in front of her. You can see her arm through there. They are good and done. Now, usually you'd want to go in and start changing up the colours on those characters. Maybe you might want to add a new background in. The female character still has a background on her. So if I put, say, in a black background as the background here, you'll notice that she's still got her background behind her, so it doesn't look great. You can also see some of the really poor work I've done here on getting a good pull on this character. As I said earlier, we can work with on black for our pulls, which makes it slightly easier to sort of see what's going on there. That's still terrible, but you're not actually going to notice this when it's on white. This does actually give me another chance to show these as well. The paintbrush tool, paint bucket tool, we can use to just fill a whole area, and you'll see there I've just used white, switching between the background and foreground colour. I've just used white to fill in the background area. So our two characters are on there, they're happy, they're done. The next thing I really wanted to show you is how to use text, and how to start labelling things as well. So I'm actually going to layer this from the background, and call it background, and I'm actually going to start grouping things together. So I'm going to select all the layers there. I'm just using Shift so that I can select multiple layers. You can also just hold Control and just click on the layers that you want to select. Shift is usually quicker if they're all on a line. And I'm going to hit this Create New Group button, and pop these in that group. And I'm just going to label this group Models. One of the things that you'll want to do is make sure you label all of your layers as much as possible, because then you know what you're working with and you don't have to muck around too much later on down the line. You won't lose things that way. So labelling as you go is always useful. The only problem with putting things in groups is that sometimes you want to change the order of things. So do label your layers as you go as well. Bear in mind that this literally robot man, lab coat woman, I'm going to know what those are later on. You could call them male model and female model if you wanted to be really pedantic. Let's start adding our other elements to this then. And the easiest way is to come down to the T button, which is the horizontal type tool. Now bear in mind, on lots of these tools, I haven't shown you this yet, but on lots of these tools you can click and hold and it will have other versions of the same tool. So you could have a vertical type tool or a horizontal type mask tool if you wanted to. I just need the horizontal type tool though. What this does is it will allow me to type something in as text. Some people will use boxes, so click and drag to create a text box, same way that you might do in Word. Personally, I would only do that if you know there's a specific area you want something to fit into, because otherwise it makes it slightly harder to manipulate and can get quite annoying. So usually I actually use, I will just click where I want to start typing. You'll see this appears. The little black dot that's appeared is only there as a marker. It will go away once you're done. So let's just put in our title, build a boyfriend, and you'll notice that I cannot see the text at the moment. That's because it's white on white. Again, this is one of those things that people quite often don't notice, but always check what your background colour is and what colour you're using for your text. So that currently is white on white, so you're not going to be able to see it. I'm actually going to pick out a new colour for this. I could come over here and select a black, and you'll see that it's appeared there. I'm actually going to pick out a colour from his chest, so that will do. for now. Over here we can change the size of the font, and you can see there I've got my nice straightforward font. Bear in mind you're going to want to hit the tick up here when you're done. Now I'm not going to use Universe LT. I'm going to come up. Oh, I've forgotten what I've called this one. We can use a variety of different things. I've got a lot of different fonts on here, which makes it quite nice. So I mean, if I was doing something comic booky, I might go for something like that. I'm just going to double check what font I used. So I used Origin Tech. So let's grab that. Origin Tech. So you can find it in here, and blam. Build a Boyfriend is in nice and straightforward. Now obviously that's going massively off the screen at the moment, so I can make that a bit smaller to fit the space. And this might be a time where you do deliberately stretch something, especially something like a title, where it might not be too bad to do so. You can also come up here. Sometimes the font will have a different version, but Build a Boyfriend fits in nicely on there now, and that's going to be our title up the top. As you can see from here, I've added lots of different text layers in. I've done lots of changes. I can literally, because of this, do a quick cheat now. So on text layer, you can actually duplicate a whole group and change where it goes to. I'm just going to do that for now so that you can see that that's all in, and it just means I don't have to copy out all that text. Now you'll see as well that actually across the two images this is slightly different sized, that my models are slightly too big in this one. So I'm going to come in here and just reduce the size of my models just a little tiny bit, not too much. And I'm just going to take my female model by going in here. I'm just going to move her over. And remember, we can always go through at any point and start moving things in this layers tab. So again, I can come in here, I can find my tagline. Remember, I've been labeling these as I go, and I can move that. That's still kind of a little bit on his head. And so I'm going to show you another quick cheat. If you right click on something, you can find it'll give you a selection of layers that are there, and there you go. I've grabbed that and moved it, and same there with the title. Now I did actually play around with the title a little bit, so you'll notice on here that there's these effects. Effects can be initiated from here, and then you can select an effect to put on it. So I've got a drop shadow and an inner glow on that title. They can be quite nice for adding something a little bit different. So you can go in and add those as you like. Normally when you do text, so if I add a text line here, you'll notice that it just says build on there. If you don't change anything, that will always be whatever the text line is. That can be quite good if you've just got simple short lines of text. If you've got much longer lines of text, my advice would be to double click on here, and then you can change the name. So I've just labelled that as test. You'll notice as well there's a couple of quick ways to get onto the text itself. You can use the text tool, and if you click on an area where there's already text, it will take you directly to that layer. The other way is from the layers tab. You can double click on the T and it will take you into the text edit. If you're on a different tool and you just keep clicking on the text though, it's not going to do anything. And likewise, if you just click on the layer, it's not going to automatically allow you to edit the text. You will need to go in and do it a bit more specifically than that. So always click on the T to be able to edit the text. Remember, you've got colour up here, you've got font size, and you've got font itself all across the top. This is where all of your tools, tool settings are going to be, is this top layer. Tools down the left, tool settings at the top. So for text, that's really useful. So we've got our main text in there now. Now what I've done as well is I've given you access to this billing block template. This is really straightforward. It's just a basic billing block set out so that you can edit everything in it. It's not perfect because of the fact that usually these would all be on sort of 2 layers and sort of a bit more squashed together. But this works completely fine if you're just doing it for A-level coursework or GCSE coursework even. And I've also got the BBFC box down here. Lots of people use the wrong BBFC box on film posters. It's not the circular ones. It's these rectangular ones with the couple of lines of information about the key reasons why a certain certificate has been given. So do bear that in mind, that those are the rectangular boxes. So I've included both of those for you on here. Now what we can do is we can, rather than sort of dragging in a billing block that we can't edit, I've left this as a Photoshop file so that you can open it up in Photoshop, and then if you right click on the layer that you want to duplicate, you can click duplicate layer, change the document over to film poster, and when you press OK, that's going to then jump in over here, and you'll see it's jumped straight in onto his body. Now actually I did a change to him before so that he was slightly brighter, but because he's not as bright, I'm going to put that to black, and that makes it a little bit more visible. Still slightly annoying there, but it's not the end of the world. We can still see that pretty clearly, so I'm not going to worry about it too much for now. So already you can see all these bits going in. The only other thing I will mention is that on here you've got your BBFC box. At the moment this is black. You can copy the whole thing over by a duplicate group, so that can go into the film poster as well. And you'll notice that this is all black at the moment. If you did want to change it, I've left a colour overlay on the box itself, so you can come on that and change it. So I could put this as whatever colour I wanted. We can have it as red, we can have it as black, we can do what we need to do. These are the basics. These are the basics to make your own film poster. You can the only difference between that one and this one really is a minor change to his colour shape, and I've added in some PNGs at the bottom for a website and some institutional logos, but otherwise we pretty much finished that off straight away, and it's not too bad. It's not great, but this passes as a film poster. If we have a better focal image, if we have maybe something a little bit more exciting on there, that would be a perfectly passable film poster that anyone could pick up. So what I'd like you to try is to build your own version of this. I'm going to upload all of the assets for you to get hold of, and then you can take your own try at the Build a Boyfriend film poster. I'm going to do some more videos on various other bits to do with Photoshop, but hopefully that's a good starting point for you to have a go at this. So good luck, and hopefully it's not too embarrassing that you've been looking at this atrocious first attempt at a build a boyfriend poster. Hopefully we can build some slightly more interesting ones in the future. Thank you.